So welcome to our global journeys, personal stories, exploring your heritage through a study abroad presentation. This session is part of the Exploring Your Identity series, a collaboration between UCEAP and Campus Study Abroad offices.
So to start off the presentation, we're just going to briefly define who is a heritage student. So a very general definition is a student studying abroad in a country of ancestry or cultural heritage. However, there are many interpretations and assumptions depending on who you talk to, including variations that may be used to describe a heritage student. You may see the term heritage speaker, heritage language learner, or heritage seeker. The connection that a heritage student has to the country may be ancestral, cultural, familial, etc. Their family may have a very recent tie to the country, or it might be the birthplace many generations ago. A student might have a direct connection to the country, such as a long line of ancestral history, or a more indirect one, such as cultural ties due to migration or adoption. Each student's experience is different and unique, which you'll notice is an overarching theme for the remainder of this presentation.
The following are some questions to reflect on as you explore study abroad options and prepare for your study abroad journey. First, how does being a heritage student influence your goals and choices for studying abroad, if at all? For example, do you want to study in a specific world region, country, or city? Or are you planning to take language courses or content courses taught in another language? Additionally, do you want to connect with a diaspora or community with shared ties no matter where you study abroad? Second, what aspects of your heritage might you want to learn more about? Are these aspects connected to a location, family members, historical or current events, religion, language, or other factors? How can you explore these aspects in your study abroad location? Third, how might your heritage and identity affect the way that you may be perceived and interact with people abroad? Fourth, what assumptions, expectations, and preconceptions might you have of yourself and others regarding your study abroad experience, including people who may share aspects of your culture or heritage? How might these be challenged? And finally, what experience, knowledge, skills, and resources can you access during your study abroad journey as a heritage student? This could include cultural knowledge, prior travel experience, adaptability, or other skills, and connections to people, organizations, or other sources of relevant knowledge.
Moving on, we also want to discuss some common experiences that may occur when you arrive on site. When you arrive to your host country, you might find that external perceptions are different from what you expected. For example, cultural perceptions may differ from what you expect. Locals may perceive you differently than how you see yourself or how you are seen in the US. If your connection to the country is several generations removed, locals may not fully consider it as one of them. Conversely, you may also be viewed through local stereotypes of what it means to be a US student or American. Your appearance and ethnic identity may also be perceived differently. For example, locals may make assumptions about your ethnicity or identity. If you are of mixed heritage or look different from the local population, you may be perceived as an outsider. Lastly, your language proficiency could also affect the way you're perceived. Your language skills may shape how locals interact with you. If you look like a local but struggle with the language, this could lead to unexpected challenges or awkward interactions. Additionally, the local dialect or slang may be different from what you learned in the classroom or at home. We also want to highlight some common successes you might experience in your host country, such as being in the majority. This may be your first time studying in a place where you are part of the ethnic or cultural majority, which can be a meaningful experience. This is a great opportunity to connect with your heritage. Studying abroad may deepen your connection to your ancestral roots and even provide opportunities to meet extended family. Personal growth and identity. The experience can offer a deeper understanding of your identity, helping you answer questions about who you are and where you come from. While we want to celebrate some common successes, it is important to be aware that some challenges may arise when you arrive in your host country, such as cultural dissonance and identity conflicts. You may feel like an outsider or experience a sense of being in between cultures. Some students report that they feel like I'm neither from here nor from there. Unfortunately, you may also experience challenges while navigating identity expectations in your host country. Some cultural environments may not be as accepting of identities that are widely embraced in the US. For example, gender roles may be more traditional, and LGBTQ+ identities might not be as openly accepted in certain countries. Finally, you might be surprised by the way your time abroad causes you to reassess your identity. Studying abroad in your heritage country can challenge and reshape your understanding of who you are. You may feel a stronger connection to your cultural roots, or you may realize that your identity is more complex than you once thought. It's not uncommon for students to experience a blending of cultural influences. Navigating different perceptions and cultural expectations may lead you to integrate aspects of both your heritage and your US identity in new ways. You might develop a deeper appreciation for the ways your background shapes your worldview. You may also experience personal growth and confidence. Embracing both the successes and challenges of this experience can strengthen your confidence in defining your identity on your own terms. You may return home with a more nuanced perspective on cultural belonging, family history, and personal values.
So we've talked about how the study abroad journey could be different for a heritage student. Now we'll share some ideas of what you can do to help prepare for your experience. Take the time to research the history and culture of where you are going. Growing up, you may or may not have already had some exposure to both. However, things could have changed since you or your family members last visited. Your new role as an independent student may expose you to different groups and lifestyles. So, what are the current events happening in the country? What are the trends on university campuses? And what is the local student culture? Knowing the local language can help open communication channels between you and the local community and help facilitate the exchange of ideas. Even if it is just a few phrases, having some knowledge of the language can help make connections and build the foundation for new relationships. While on the program, seek ways to improve proficiency, like taking language courses or even courses taught in the local language. Before you go, talk to returnees from your program and ask them for advice. There may also be exchange students from your future university who are currently studying on your UC campus, so you have an opportunity to make a friend before even leaving the US. In addition to fellow students, you can discuss your upcoming trip with your family or support system and learn more about their background and how it shaped them. Groups such as local community centers and student clubs on campus could also provide you with insight on what life is like abroad. While exploring your heritage may be one of your main goals for studying abroad, you should also factor in other aspects of your identity. The combination of your experiences and background contribute to who you are. Most importantly, remember to try to keep an open mind and be as flexible as possible. Each person's study abroad experience is unique.
On this slide, you'll find some resources to check out as you continue your study abroad explorations. The Californian Abroad, which is UCEAP's blog, has a variety of posts written by UC students. A couple that focus on the topic of studying abroad as a heritage student include What I Learned as a Korean American Studying in South Korea and How Study Abroad Helped Me Embrace the Complexities of All My Identities. Be Globally by DA Global is a great place to check out articles, guides, and exploratory questions to consider as a heritage student. And it's also a good idea to connect with your UC Campus Study Abroad office and UCEAP for additional resources and to discuss your study abroad plans. For example, the UC San Diego and UC Berkeley Study Abroad offices have information for heritage students on their diversity and identity web pages.
Thanks, Andrew. Now moving on to our student panel. We are fortunate to be joined by several formal students, as well as one current UCEAP student. I will allow each of them to introduce themselves. If you could please tell us your name, your UC campus, your UC major, and then your host university, that'd be great.
Hello Hello, everybody. Yeah, my name's Joseph. I'm currently studying abroad right now at the National Autonomous University of Mexico in Mexico City. I'm doing the year-long program, so I'm about 9-ish months into the year-long program here. I'm a Spanish major, so obviously there's a kind of obvious academic connection between the two. And what else? I think that's about it. Yeah, right?
Thanks, Joseph.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. My name is Taylin Cobb. I'm a current UC Santa Barbara student, film and media studies major, and I studied abroad in Ghana for the semester abroad program this past fall. So it was 3.5 months in Ghana from September to December. And I wanted to go there to research Ghanaian studies specifically, to see how I can bridge the gap between Ghanaian studies and my film and media studies.
Great, thanks, Taylin.
Hi everyone, my name's Tony. I also go to UC Santa Barbara. I study abroad in Bologna, in Italy for the fall quarter. So that was from August to December. And I'm in economics and statistics and data science double major, which doesn't really have much to do with Italy, but as a lot of people here, I think I had that ancestral or like familiar connection to Italy. So that's why I went.
Thanks, Tony.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tristan. I graduated from UCSB in 2023, and I did my UCEAP study abroad in Tokyo, Japan at International Christian University. And I was a global studies major, so I kind of wanted to participate in the study abroad program in any way, and I just figured, Japan was the place to go because I have cultural ties there.
Thanks, Tristan.
Hi everyone, my name is Beatrice. I'm from UC Irvine and my major is political science and economics. I studied in Seoul, South Korea at Yonsei University for the fall 2024 semester. So for me, that was around the end of August to the end of December. It was my first time going to Korea and it was a great experience.
Great, thanks, Beatrice. All right, so thank you all for joining us today. We do have a set of questions we'd like to ask each of you. So our first question, and this is a question for everyone, why did you choose to study abroad as a heritage student? And then how did your heritage factor into your program choice?
Yeah, I guess for me, one as a Spanish major, obviously studying in a Spanish-speaking country was a kind of like an easy choice, right? But I think even beyond any kind of like academic or like professional considerations was like this really earnest desire for cultural reconnection, to spend as much time as possible in Mexico, to really gain a kind of, felt physical day-to-day sense of what it's like to live in Mexico, especially in the capital. Something I kind of realized over time is that, as a Mexican American, you're kind of always navigating your Mexicanness from the United States, right? And then, spending an extended amount of time in your host country, in Mexico in this case, it's kind of the inverse of that. You're kind of now you're navigating your Americanness side by side with your Mexicanness, and slowly those two things come together. And so yeah, for me, like heritage was like one of the most important considerations in terms of doing a study abroad.
For me personally, I started exploring my ancestry my freshman year when I got here to UC Santa Barbara. My grandmother had done her ancestry test, and Ghana was one of the major percentages when she got the results back. So I looked at the UCEAP programs that were provided and I was like, no freaking way. Ghana is one of them. I was like, I have to do this. This will be a great, great experience. So it really did play a major part in my heritage, and just want to explore Ghanaian culture specifically was the reason why I chose the program because there was no film studies, no media studies major department at the University of Ghana where I was. But I was like, it doesn't even matter. I'm just gonna go and have a good time and explore Ghanaian culture. And it just meant a lot for me since due to the like legacy of the transatlantic slave trade, I was the first person in my lineages, both my maternal and paternal, to go back to Africa since the transatlantic slave trade. So it was a really, really big deal for me to be able to go back to Africa and go back to Ghana specifically. I had a really amazing time.
So I chose Italy because so I have a lot of family in Italy. My mom immigrated from Italy here. Um, and so pretty much her entire side of the family is still in Italy. So all my grandparents, my cousins, my aunts, yeah, all the extended family is in Italy, and I'm lucky enough to visit every now and then. So I've been to Italy before, and actually, when I was looking to study abroad, I was considering like, oh, maybe I should look at somewhere else. You know, I've actually like, I've been to Italy before. Maybe I want to explore a different place, but Italy, and I mean, I'm sure with every other country, is just like different. Every region is very unique too, and a lot of differences. So I studied abroad in Bologna, and but most of my family's from lives in Rome. So study abroad in Bologna was extremely special to kind of get like a different side of Italy. Because normally when I do visit Italy, it's I kind of just hang around Rome. I don't get to explore the places because I am kind of going there for like family, just to see family. But this was a great opportunity to kind of explore the rest of Italy, to kind of see what else the country has to offer, and um, just the history of Italy is very unique too, as they were all kind of like um, independent but before, and then like very recently actually they just kind of came together to one country. But so they kind of all have their unique sort of culture, which is really cool to explore.
I'm half Japanese. I was born in Japan. So going to Japan was kind of, I wanted to connect back to my Japanese roots, but growing up, I was pretty distant from my Japanese side, my mom's side of the family. And we only visited Japan, every to 2, 3 years. So I kind of lacked a deeper connection with my family there. And I didn't have much on my American side in California. Um, and then in college, COVID restrictions hit. We planned like a big trip to Japan, and we were all ready to go and couldn't go because all the restrictions and the cost. So while I was a student at UCSB, I took Japanese classes and got my minor in Japanese to kind of better understand reading and writing, since I could kind of speak pretty casually, which helped a lot. And yeah, I mean, I could have definitely decided to go somewhere else, kind of like Tony, but I really wanted to visit my family, and I thought that Japan was, the only choice I really had. And I think it was one of the greatest choices I made looking back at it.
I think my experience is there's a lot of similarities as to what everyone here has said. For me, my heritage was the main reason why I decided to study abroad in Korea. I was born in California, and I had some influence from like Korean culture growing up, but I had never been. So in my head, I kind of always knew that I wanted to try studying abroad in Korea. I had actually applied to study abroad at a different university in Korea the year before, but I ended up not going with that and then going with a different school the following year. But it was really great being in Korea and connecting with that culture and practicing the language. I had taken some Korean language classes while I was a student or like at UCI. Um, and I got to connect with a lot of my extended family members, and it was really great.
Thank you all for sharing. The next question, how did you prepare? And what advice do you have for heritage students getting ready to go abroad?
Yeah. For me, like I think my major was kind of like a preparation for it, right? Like I knew I wanted to be like as as apt, as skilled as possible in Spanish, just to be able to really, I don't know, just get the most out of my time abroad. So that was part of it. Also, like, I've kind of like what Tony said, I also have like still like recent familial connections in Mexico. So like I had traveled to the country before. Um, so that was kind of a part of it. I don't know, like one piece of advice I would have for heritage students getting ready to study abroad for sure is the language element, right? For sure is like just soaking up as much of the culture as possible before getting there. Um, but then also like I don't know, like to take some time to like really enjoy your home base. Get take some time to enjoy time with family and friends and places before you leave, right? Because like you're gonna be gone for a while. So it's kind of nice to like really soak that up and kind of take that that friend and familial support with you as you go abroad.
I think that a good way to prepare for studying abroad at University of Ghana would be to at least know a little bit of the local language or which is Twi. It's spelled TWI but pronounced Twi. I think just knowing a little bit like thank you, my name is, what is your name? Things like that would be very good to just get around Accra, the capital, where the university is located, but also just when you want to go travel outside of the capital. I think that's the most important piece of advice, especially since Ghanaian people are so hospitable and very nice. It would just be very wholesome to extend that kind of hospitality back to them, just to let them know, like, I'm here to study and learn, but also I appreciate the hospitality. So I think just knowing a little bit of Tree before you go is nice. And then also, every student has the opportunity to take the local language class, so that's also an option. But beyond that, I think that just have a good time. And I think one more way to prepare yourself is to understand that the weather and the climate in Ghana is totally different than in California. Anywhere in California, whichever UC you may go to, Ghana is tropical weather. It's very, very humid, and depending on which season you go, it can either frustrate you or excite you, depending on whether you like humid weather. It's the kind of humidity that's thick, and as soon as you walk outside of a room or outside of, a building, it hits you in the face, and you're like, whoa. But I think a lot of us, the students in my group, we would always talk about the weather, how it's so different. But beyond that, it's still an enjoyable experience.
Um, I think they both mentioned good things, especially language. I was lucky enough to like grow up speaking Italian, so I was pretty fluent coming in. But I think yeah, just like knowing any little bit of language is super helpful and can really like make your experience a lot better. Even if a lot of people do speak English where you're going, I think just knowing a little bit of the local language can go a long way just for your own like appreciation. And I would say, I think Joseph also touched on this, kind of like, yeah, I think when people go abroad, there's a lot of like desire to travel, which is definitely like a great part of being abroad, but also it's important to kind of like spend a lot of time in the city that you're studying in. I think that's like one of the best ways you can kind of gain that sort of more like cultural appreciation. Sometimes when you travel, like like over the weekend, you go 3 days somewhere and you see like amazing things, but sometimes it's hard to get a good grasp on culture. But if you're living somewhere, like you really need to make the most of that. And like you want to be spending some weekends there. You want to be spending a lot of time there and just like exploring the town, even the small parts. Um, and yeah, I think that's like one good way to like make the most of your experience.
Yeah, like everyone said, I agree with the language portion. If you go to Japan, you should definitely know some greetings, you know how to say hi and thank you and all that. And luckily enough, I knew Japanese already, so it wasn't much of an issue. But I do think kind of no matter what country you go to, I think you should definitely be open-minded and willing to challenge yourself and kind of get out of your comfort zone and just kind of prepare yourself for that. I know when I was in Japan, I tried to take, every opportunity I had to just talk with whoever. If I was ordering food at a grocery store, walking around, if I had some like silly little question, I try to ask someone just to kind of start a conversation, to kind of, just to get to know the people in Japan a bit better, whether they be, ethnically Japanese or not. You get to learn a lot about people that way. And, just, um, yeah, take every opportunity you can. I think it's a great learning experience, to just get out of your comfort zone. And for weather, if you're traveling there in the summer, make sure to bring shorts and t-shirts because it gets really humid in Tokyo.
I think everyone has said kind of what I would also say. I think language is especially important. Even if you're kind of like embarrassed to speak, if you're like, oh, but like my accent's so off, or like, oh, what if they like make fun of me? Like, you're fine. Just have the confidence to go for it. And like 99% of the time, I think people are honestly so kind and so sweet and willing to help you out. So I'd say just like go for it for the language. For my experience specifically in Seoul and at Yonsei, it's honestly the area that I was in was very like non-Korean speaker friendly. Even ordering in restaurants, you wouldn't talk to anybody. You'd just like press on the kiosk and the kiosk is in English. And a lot of people speak English as well. But so I would say that if you want to practice language, you kind of have to extend yourself a little bit and like push yourself to go for that. But in terms of how I prepared, I did a lot of YouTube, Instagram, like stalking. I was going through like past UCEAP Korea posts and looking up like move-in or like move-in vlogs for like the dorms at Yonsei. Um, I was trying to join a bunch of Discord groups to figure out like whole visa situations. And I was also reaching out to some of my extended family. I've never met them, but thankfully, like my parents were kind of in touch. So through like different degrees of relatives, we got in touch before I arrived in Korea. Um, and in terms of advice, um, I would say something that I wish I did was I wish I did more of the touristy kind of stuff. I think like taking pictures in like hanbok at like the palace or doing or like going to more amusement parks and doing kind of like the fun touristy stuff. It's not cringe, it's fun and you won't regret it. And I think also be aware of obviously weather. I'm sure the weather in whatever country you're going to go to is probably very different from what you're used to. If it's very humid, sandals are always better than like running shoes because your feet are just going to get wet anyways. Um, and something else I wish I knew was to be more aware of like the semester because for at least for Yonsei University, the fall semester was the second semester of the year. So spring was the first and fall was the second. So by that time, it was already like halfway through the year. So it was a bit harder to join clubs and to get involved and to like kind of make friends because by that time, people had already like joined clubs and already like made friends. So if you're interested in joining clubs, I would say to be aware of the semester and when you're going.
Thank you all for your responses. Okay, the next question. What were your expectations and how did reality differ, if it did at all?
Yeah, so like I had spent like a little bit of time in Mexico City before, like a week before, in the past, um, which is super different from living here long term. Um, yeah, I mean, like one is like kind of like everybody has like mentioned so far is like there's just going to be like such environmental differences. Um, Mexico City is at over 7,000 feet, compared to most of the UC campuses, which are like not nearly that high. So like for that first month, you're walking around like, why am I so tired? And you're like, oh yeah, it's because we're like up in the mountains. And so like you have that, it's just a massive city, right? So you just have like the noise pollution, you have the actual pollution. You have the rainy season, which is like 3 months straight of really heavy rains, which is kind of gnarly at first. But yeah, and then apart from that, it's just a different in UNAM where I study. You're on the semester system as opposed to the quarter system, so things are kind of like stretched out and you kind of spend more time studying things. But then you also have like this sort of paradigmatic difference of like orality here in Mexico, where it's like as opposed to essays and written exams, a lot of it's going to be oral exams, oral presentations. It's going to be a lot of like real time in the classroom participation. So it's a lot more dynamic in that sense. Yeah, so that's something I would say for anybody considering studying at UNAM. It's kind of yeah, it's just a different sort of set of academic values.
I like that you ended with like a different set of academic values. I think that's a good thing to start with, especially for anyone who wants to study abroad at University of Ghana. Um, so my expectations was that when I got there, I would be in like these really big classes with a whole lot of other Ghanaian students. But unfortunately, the students were not in classes with me because during this time in the fall, there were some strikes going on with the professors, or they're called lecturers in Ghana, with the lecturers and also other personnel. So due to the strike, the professors who we worked with through UCEAP and also the other international students worked directly with our programs and with the students in these programs specifically. And this is not anything new to like any of these programs. The aunties, which aunties are like program managers in Ghana. That's what they're called, our aunties. The aunties had explained to us, like, oh, this happens sometimes. Just rock and roll with the punches, but everything's going to be good. You'll get your credits and all that. So I actually like loved the really intimate classes. Um, but I was expecting bigger classes. I was preparing myself for that, like going in a class full of 200, 300 students, but I was in classes with like 3 to 7 students max, which is definitely different. And, it could happen just depending on whatever's happening with administration at the time. So that was one expectation that totally shifted once I got there. And I think another thing is I'm on a quarter system with UC Santa Barbara, and the semester system in Ghana and it was totally different than what I'm used to. Quarter system really prepares you to just be on go mode. Like you have to go, 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 right? It's like learn as much as you can and then test after test. But in Ghana, it's really just like, okay, go to these lectures, sit down in these classes, talk about the readings, take your notes. The professors or lecturers really do want you to ask questions. I really appreciate that about all the lectures I had. They were very kind in answering questions and also promoting us to ask the questions. I really appreciated that. But it was still something that I wasn't necessarily prepared for being in the semester system because I also was very laid back because I was like, okay, I don't have to be so, very tight with my studying. But I think that's also like an expectation that shifted once I got there. But once again, I'm going to keep saying this, reiterating this. It was still amazing regardless. But yeah.
So probably a few things. One of my expectations was like, I'm gonna go to Italy, I'm gonna speak a ton of Italian, I'm gonna yeah, I mean that was one of the things I was expecting to speak Italian everywhere. And actually I was very surprised that in the end I most of my friends were American and like my roommate was American. So in the end I actually didn't speak Italian nearly as much as I was expecting. Um, so that came to a little bit of a surprise. I definitely still had to use it, but I think as some of the people mentioned, like you kind of have to like go out of your way sometimes and really push yourself if you want to speak Italian and practice the language. I think kind of going along with the classes too. Bologna was also on a semester system, but in contrast, what you guys were saying, they in Italy, or at least at Bologna, they had a strange system where like some classes, they would do it in like half a semester. The professor could choose to do it faster. So actually, two of my classes were done in 5 weeks instead of 10, which was really strange. And yeah, I was kind of expecting like, oh, semester, maybe I'll be like a little bit, I could go at a slower pace. I'm not taking as many classes too, but it was kind of strange doing a class in 5 weeks. But at the same time, they don't really like assign much homework. It's kind of like a 100% oral exam at the end, which is also like a little bit intimidating. But at the end of the day, like you're just having a conversation with the professor, and it's like once you start talking, it's really not that bad. You just start having a conversation. And maybe the last thing, um, I was kind of expecting to like learn all about like my Italian culture or just gain a lot of Italian understanding, which I definitely did. But I think I was also surprised to learn a lot about kind of how Americans are perceived in Italy, which I think was very interesting. Even in my classes, there was, the US gets brought up all the time, and I was obviously aware that like the US is played like is on a very global stage, but it was interesting to see like how like relevant the US was even in these like Italian classes when we were talking about all sorts of things. It was like the US was constantly being brought up. And then it's just kind of like how do people like some people probably like some things about Americans, and there's also a lot of things that they don't like about Americans. And I don't know, you kind of just like really interesting to at least see like what people think of in both.
Yeah, similar to Tony, I used a lot of English at my program at International Christian University. I thought it would be, very overstimulating being in Tokyo and have a lot of, Japanese speakers there, but it was kind of on the outskirts of Tokyo, so it's pretty quiet, which it's nice. And almost all the students, even the students that are from Japan, they are required to speak English there. So you can communicate with anyone if you go to International Christian University. I was expecting to meet more Japanese people and practice my Japanese a lot more on campus, but I didn't. But I also had the opportunity to meet a lot of international students from different places. So, I didn't know much about like the Netherlands, but 5 of my best friends I made there were from the Netherlands, and they're teaching me Dutch phrases and all these things. So I did have to go out of my way to practice my Japanese, but on the flip side, I did learn a lot more about other countries and different perspectives on different things. Also going into my program, I thought I was a lot more connected with my Japanese side, but there's just a lot of different things that I preferred in America over Japan. I know Japan's a lot cleaner, the food's great, healthcare is a bit cheaper, but growing up in California, I didn't end up missing Mexican food a lot. I missed driving my car. I missed, the sunshine, and I missed the outgoingness and, sometimes bluntness that American people have. I just realized that, I think I preferred America more than I preferred Japan living over an extended period of time, which I think was a good thing to learn. And I wouldn't have learned that without going on EAP. And I also did not expect to meet as many mixed Japanese people or Japanese Americans during my study abroad, which is cool because growing up, I didn't get to connect with people from a similar background as me that were my age. So it was cool to talk with them and share similar experiences with them.
I think everybody made really good points that I would also say. I think the language thing was one of my biggest uh maybe surprises. I really thought that I would be speaking Korean all the time, and I'd be like, oh, what if I forget English because I'm speaking Korean all the time? But it was like the opposite. I was speaking English all the time because all my classes were in English, and like ordering and going out, a lot of things were already in English. So I did kind of have to extend myself a bit to speak Korean more. On the academic side, I would say that I was a little bit worried that the classes were going to be very like rigorous, and that if I were to take major requirement classes, it was going to be very different, and like the prerequisites might not match up. So I ended up taking like one of my econ major requirements, and the prerequisites did not match up. So I ended up dropping that course. But a lot of the like all the other courses I ended up taking were UCEAP specific courses. So a lot of those were like about Korean culture, and they were made specifically for like study abroad students. So that was something that I wasn't necessarily expecting, but it's kind of was really nice. Um, Something like on a different topic that I also wasn't expecting was about like shopping and kind of having fun. I was kind of expecting that. I feel like everyone goes to Korea and they're like, "Oh my gosh, look at all the stuff that I bought. Like everything is so cheap and I could just like buy whatever I want." But um not everything is super, super cheap, obviously. And also, it's kind of hard to buy things if you don't have like a Korean ID card that you'll get later in the semester, or if you don't have a Korean bank account. So, like, kind of more logistical things like that were things that I didn't really expect. But yeah.
All right, thanks everyone. One final question. We'd like for you to share your greatest success and challenge as a heritage student studying abroad. So being a heritage student in your host country, what was your greatest success and challenge?
Yeah, I think, man. So like going into it, like I knew at UNAM, it's the top university in Mexico, and so I knew going into it that it was going to be challenging. But it was really challenging. It was really hard. The classes are quite demanding. And so I think like my first 2 months there, I was just going through some like major imposter syndrome. And just feeling like I don't know if I can keep up. I don't know if my Spanish is good enough. I don't know if am I too Americanized for this, you know? Um, but I ended up finishing my first semester with straight A's, and so getting to the end of the fall semester and then also just seeing like, oh, like I know how to get around the city using public transportation and I have like my favorite restaurants and I just know the city and I feel comfortable in it. But kind of reaching that academic hallmark was like, oh, okay, cool. I can do this. And so for me, that was like a massive part of it, just kind of seeing like, after that first half year of the adjustment, in every sense, environmentally, academically, socially, linguistically, um, seeing that I was capable after all. So yeah, that was a pretty massive part of it, and I think it's kind of made me feel more perfectly Mexican American, like not too American and not too like perfectly a mixture of both. And I think it's really, I don't know, it really has made me feel very confident in that label of bicultural, binational, bilingual, all that. So yeah, for any heritage students considering studying abroad, like it can be super tough sometimes, but do it. You should do it.
That was good, Joseph. Um, I think, first of all, the most challenging thing about studying abroad at UG was during orientation. So orientation is like a month long of activities and excursions that the UCEAP group goes on into different parts of Ghana. So we, extend outside of the capital, Accra. The hardest challenge happened during that orientation when we went to like a slave castle, basically where enslaved Africans were held before they got shipped to the New World. That was very, very tough for me. Um, because it's just like all these emotions coming up and just these feelings, and it's like this generational trauma just hits you in the stomach and in the heart, and then you want to bawl and cry. That was the most challenging. It was very difficult for me. I'm still processing that as well because, like I said, like I am the first person to go back to Africa for generations and centuries. So that was very hard for me. Um, but beyond that, I think that one of the best experiences that I had out there was being able to just relax and decompress from life in America. I feel like we're always on go out here. We very rarely give ourselves the time to just relax and actually enjoy life. So in Ghana, I got that chance to just relax. And also part of that relaxing was me applying to different grad school programs. And I've been accepted to some of them, which I'm so happy about. And I was like, because I gave myself that time to relax and really focus on what I want to do next steps. I think that was one of the greatest experiences that I had at UG. So definitely, I would just tell Black students specifically who want to go to UG and study abroad, do it. It's gonna be challenging. We're our own people, so my challenges may not be your challenges, and my excitements may not be your excitements and all that, but still do it and push yourself like everyone else has been saying. It'll be a great experience.
So I don't know. I feel like there's all kinds of like small challenges that I was facing, or just kind of different things to get used to. I remember one of the things that I first noticed, and just a small thing like that. It's just like I go to the grocery store and I'm like, whoa, like I don't even know how to like shop here. Like there's so many like I don't. It's like one just like I'm in a different grocery store than I normally go to, but it's like just like everything's a little bit different, and I can't get like the usual things. All my Trader Joe's go-tos aren't there anymore. Um, but yeah, I don't know. That was like one thing to get used to, but off the top of my head, I can't think of other things, but there's just a lot of small things like that you're kind of getting used to. But that's also, part of the experience. And it's just kind of like also a good skill, just kind of like adapt to what's going on. Transportation is another big one. I've never really lived in like a big city. Um, and I've always used to like biking everywhere, and I was still biking here, but now it's like cars are actually more of like a threat, and they're not actually gonna like stop for you and let you go like they do in some places that are much more bike friendly. So you kind of have to like actually be a little bit more cautious, um stuff like that. But in general, I feel like one maybe the successes for me in Italy, I was very happy with all the places I was able to visit. I feel like I got a really good kind of like diverse blend of Italy. Um, just kind of visiting like places in the north, places in the south, kind of like different like sort of income levels, different just yeah, very different like everywhere you go. Um, yeah, and I feel like I got to visit some people that I really wanted to visit that I don't always get to see. Those are all like good successes for me. Yeah.
I think a challenge for me during my time at ICU was managing my time effectively, especially because I was just doing a fall quarter there. Um, I mean, academics always come first, so going to class, making sure all my assignments were done, but also finding the time to, connect with my family who lived, like 3 hours away on a bullet train up north, and having the time to visit them. And also finding time to hang out with new friends that you've made and exploring the city of Tokyo. So just trying to manage all that. Luckily enough, my few of my family members came down to Tokyo and visited me, so I didn't have to make that trip up there, which was nice. But yeah, I think that was definitely the hardest part. I do think the travel or like the public transportation in Tokyo is pretty digestible, especially if you have a phone. Just Google Maps everything. Um, I'd say the biggest success was connecting with my family in Japan. That was great. And I definitely learned a lot about my own cultural identity. I came in thinking, I'm going to stay here. I bought a one-way ticket to Japan, and I'm going to stay here and finish this quarter and get my degree, since it was my last, quarter, and just live here. And I realized that's not what I want to do at all. I had to let go of, trying to prove that I fit in here and just, realize that I am who I am. I feel like I'm more American in some ways, and I think I'd be happier in America. So, just finally being able to accept who I am and that my heritage doesn't, necessarily define my future. And I think no matter where you go, maybe you'll come out at your heritage country with different perspective. But I think no matter what country you go to, you'll walk away with something pretty personal to you, even if it's not what's going to make you the most happy at that time.
I definitely agree. I do feel like there were a lot of, or like kind of everyday successes and everyday challenges that I faced. I think in terms of successes, I think definitely connecting with family was also something that I am really happy to have done. Actually ended up spending a lot more time with family than I anticipated. I was at like my great aunt's place, staying with her almost every weekend, and that was really nice since um we hadn't really met before, but it was really great like to be with her and to meet like her side of the family and also my dad's side of the family. Something else was kind of the sense of independence that I felt. Because normally when I'm just attending like UCI, I commute from home. So living a little bit more on my own and having the spontaneity of, you know what, I think I just want to go somewhere and I could just get up and walk to the bus stop and then I could just go. Especially since the public transportation in Seoul was so great and so convenient and really easy to understand. I'd say some challenges were also time management. I was there for a semester, so it was a little bit of a longer period, which I'm really grateful for. But even so, it's kind of like, does the weather allow for the activity we want to do today with classes? And I also was able to do one of the UCEAP internships. So with that, like if I have to be in person or if I could just do the work remotely, figuring out how to manage that into the schedule was a little bit of a challenge. Um, Something else that was a challenge, I would say there were also a little bit of like small scale culture shocks. There were definitely things that were different from what I was expecting. Um, just in like dynamics between people, especially kind of like the sense of hierarchy between people. But nothing, yeah, but I think it was just a matter of like getting used to it and understanding different people's values and like more of connecting with that side of the culture.
Great. Thank you all. Thank you for sharing your stories and bringing such richness to our presentation. It's been great to hear about your experience studying abroad. Congratulations, Taylene, on getting into grad school.
Thank you.
Of course. Next slide, please. Okay, so we want to thank you all for joining us today. We hope this presentation has been helpful as you consider studying abroad as a heritage student. This presentation is recorded and we will be posting the recording on YouTube, and that should be available probably in the next few days or perhaps in the next few weeks. Thanks again so much for joining us.